Good morning, or actually I should say good day all the students, and welcome to this PowerPoint presentation. This whole presentation is in 4 parts so that you make sure that you enter the right presentation. Part 1 will cover study unit 1 and 2. Part 2 will cover study unit 3 and 4. Part 3 will cover study unit 5 and 6, and then the last one, part 4, our presentation will cover study units 7 and 8. This is just to give you a better understanding and cover the work in a better way. I hope you will learn a lot from this, and welcome again. So first of all, let's look at the assignments. The assignment instructions, because we are doing now the assignments online, there's no pen, pencil, or start on a new page, or don't write on both pages, etc. So from now on, you're going to do it online. But there's certain things that you really need to understand and really need to adhere to. You need not, or you should not at any cost copy anything from the study unit and paste it into your assignment. You have to use your own words, even if you rewrite it and do not copy it. You have to use your own words, and that means you must take your study guide, make summaries for yourself, summarize the different topics and make it your own. Use it in your own language, your own words, the way you speak, the way you understand it. And then examples. Most of the questions where there's examples asked, or where there's calculation asked, you have to show all the steps. Every single step of all the calculations gets marks, each and every step. And if you don't show the steps and just come up with an answer, it will unfortunately not be marked. You can only get 1 mark for the answer, but for the working you will get 0. And another thing which many times I pick that up in the assignments, you do working, you do some calculations which is completely wrong, and then all of a sudden the correct answer appears. This shows that you got the answer from somebody else and just put the answer there, but your working is completely wrong. You will also not get marks for that answer then. Your working must be correct to get the correct answer. As for the examination instructions, we're not 100% sure whether you're going to write online in future or not, but be prepared to write a sit-down exam also, and then you must really look and read the instructions carefully. There will always be 4 questions, just like the study parts here. The presentation, part 1 will be covered, question 1 will be covered. Part 2 covered question 2. Part 3 cover question 3, and part 4 cover question 4. So it's very easy for you. Each and every question should start on a new page. You may not use pencil. Go through these rules if you go to write a sit-down exam. If it's online, also the copying and having exactly the same words and sentences as any other student will be penalized very strongly. So please do your own work, have integrity, and do the best you can. You are the future teachers of our country. There we have the topics, and that's exactly how the study units are set out. The first one's number, standard notation, rounding off fractions, that's all about knowledge that you need to know. That's not a study unit. It starts at ratio will be your first, money is the second, volume third, geometry is fourth, algebra is the fifth study unit, and linear graphs is study unit 5, statistics and probability 6, and trigonometry is number 8, as you will see in your study guide. So let's look at the basic knowledge before we start at study unit 1. You need to know the number system. Go and make a big circle and draw the different number systems for yourself. Natural numbers start at 1, all the whole numbers from 1 upwards. Counting numbers start at 0. The whole numbers can be all whole numbers, positive, negative, as well as 0, which we call a neutral number. 0 is neutral. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. up till infinity is positive integers. -1, -2, -3, -4, up to negative infinity is those are your negative integers. Altogether, they are integers. Even numbers, odd numbers, square numbers is exactly what it says. You take the natural numbers and you square it. That's a square number. 1 square equals 1. 1 is a square number. 4 is a square number. 3 times 3, 9 is a square number. And then the cube numbers are the volumes of cubes with sides, natural numbers. So if you make a cube, length, breadth, and height will be 1. Volume will be 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1. Cube with sides 2. Length, breadth, and height 2. Volume 2 times 2 times 2. Length times breadth times height. That gives you 8. That's how we get the cube numbers. Prime numbers, multiples, factors. You need to know these different names and how to get them. 2 of them that I do not have here, that you have to go and summarize yourself. Look it up and make sure that you know what and when you have a rational number and what is an irrational number. Basically, a rational number can be written as any integer on another integer. A on B, where A and B are integers. And if you write it in decimal form, even if it's 3 decimal places but it stops, then it is a rational number. An irrational number, the decimal never stops, like pi. Pi is your best example of an irrational number. That decimal never stops and it never repeats or recurs. So a recurring decimal is definitely rational, like 1 on 3. A third, the decimal for a third is 0.33333 going on to infinity. That is a rational number. If I say any number is like the square root, take your calculators and key on it. The square root of 5, the square root of 6, the square root of 12, any number that's not a square number. You will get an answer on your calculator and you will see your window of your calculator is full, and if your calculator could have been bigger, that decimal will go on and on and on and on. So that's your irrational number. A non-real number, a number that do not exist, is a number like the square root of a negative number. You all know a number like that doesn't exist. There's no answer or no number where you can take the square root of any negative and you get an answer. it doesn't exist. That's a non-real or an irreal or an imaginary number. Make yourself a big diagram with all the different number systems on it and learn it. See that you know it, make it your own. Just some introduction or just something about words, because we read a lot of words and don't know exactly what it means. Learn this and be sure that if these words appear in questions, that you know exactly. Sum is the answer when numbers are added. Difference is when you subtract. Product is when you multiply. Quotient is when you divide. Product also, if I say times, 5 times, then it's multiplication. Smaller than, the sign for smaller than, it's the same as less than, fewer than. The smaller and equal is then less or equal, fewer or equal. They all mean the same. Greater than, more than, greater and equal. So make sure that you know these signs. And when it comes to rounding off, read your question. Make very sure that you read the question and notice carefully how should you give your answer. In the assignments as well as in the exam, it's very important. If you don't give the answer to the number of decimals, you have to round it off, or significant figures, then you can lose a mark at each and every answer. That can add up to a lot of marks. So read carefully. Even when you write your answer, go back to the question and look, did I give it in the correct decimal places? So rounding off numbers to the nearest 10, the easiest way is to say make whole tens. If it reached 5, then you know you go to the next 10. If it didn't reach 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, then you go to the previous 10. Round off to the nearest 100, make full hundreds. From 50 onwards, you go to the next 100. And 49 and less, even 49.9, that goes to the previous 100. Thousands, round off, make full thousands. And make sure that you know how to round off in decimal places. 1 decimal place, 2 decimal place, etc. 1 significant figure, 2 significant figures. Make sure that you know exactly how to round off all these whole numbers as well as decimals. Then a big mistake that many students make is they write a thousand separator. They write a comma for a thousand separator like some calculators do. And please, you will lose that marks, because now you have a decimal comma and you have a thousand separator comma. No, that's not acceptable. You may not use that. Make sure that you adhere to this. I still, after so many times that I've said it and I've warned you about it, there's still students that do that. You just lose all those marks. I can't give you marks if there's commas for 1,000 separators. If you want to leave a little space, like my example there, you can do it. It's not necessary. It's not needed. But if you want to, that's the most that you can do, but no comma. And then money. Money must be rounded off to 2 decimal places. You don't say $98.8. You put the 0 there. You say $98.80. There must always be 2 decimals, even if the last one is a 0. If you get on your calculator 250,8, you put the 0 to make it $250.80. If there's no cents, you can say comma 00, or 0.00, or you can just leave it out and give full dollars then. That will be marked correctly, with or without. But if there's one decimal, you have to put another 0 there. So I hope this is clear, the ways that you have to give your answer. So let's get to study Unit 1, where the topics will be standard notation and ratio and proportion. Standard notation, you only have 2 different questions. You get it in a normal number and you have to rewrite it in standard form, or you get it in a standard, already written in standard form, and you have to give it in a normal, ordinary number. And here is also, it's about decimal places. It's about places you count. You have to know, when I times with 10, my comma moves to the right 1 place. Times 100, the comma moves to the right 2 places. And when I divide, it moves to the left. So if I give you a number like 837,800, now standard form, there's only 1 digit in front of the decimal. 1 digit in front of the decimal place or decimal comma. So if I go backwards, I count now from 837,800. I start at the end because there's the comma. Even if there's no, it's a whole number, you start at the end. And you count backwards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, until I reach between the 8 and the 3. So then you will have 8,378. But how many places did I move back? 5 places. So then times 10 to the 5 to keep your answer and to keep the value of your answer the same. If you key this in your calculator, 8.378 times 10 to the 5, you'll get the original answer again. Always test yourself. Then the next one, if you have all those decimal places, 0.000315. I have to get my comma after the first digit, so between the 3 and the 1. So I count 1, 2, 3, 4 places. We go from the comma 1, 2, 3, 4 places. Now the comma is there exactly in between the 3 and the 1. And I've counted 4 places to the right. So I must, to keep my original, I must times it with 10 to the negative 4. So that in the end, my value of my number stays the same. And when I get it in standard form, I see it's times 10 to the power of 3. So I must count 3 places to the right. Positive 3, 3 places to the right. Positive, right. Negative, to the left. So I start at between the 4 and the 7. I count 1, 2, 3. So it's 1 space further. That's why I have to put a 0. 4, 7, 8, 0. I've multiplied with 1,000. When I have to multiply with 10 to the power of any negative, I count back. So like we start at 9,85, and now we have to go to the left. There's to the left 5 places. And I count, start here. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places. And that will be my final answer. So I hope you will be able to do these questions. Make sure that you see when to count to the left and when to the right. With ratios, rates, and proportion, you have to remember a ratio 3 to 4. My age to your age is 2 to 5 or 3 to 5. There is and will never be a fraction or a decimal or in different units. So your ratios must always be definitely whole numbers, both of them. So we have to simplify ratios. So first of all, we have to look there may not be fractions, so I must get them all in the same way. It must be whole numbers. I must get the fractions away. And remember, what you do to the one, you do to the other one. There we have $35 to $56. So a ratio never has units. So the first thing what you do is when they are in the same, all the decimals are gone, all the fractions are gone, there may not be units. Then they must be in the same units first. $35, $65. It's definitely in the same units, so I can leave out the dollar sign now. Now I just write 35 to 65 and without units. Now that is in a correct way, but it must always be in simplest form. It must be in simplest form. 35 to 56. What can go into 35 as well as 56? So 7, I found the 7 is the common factor. So divide by 7, the 35 divided by 7 is 5, and 56 divided by 7 is 8. So there you have your final. Nothing goes into 5 and also into 8. There is no common factor. That's my final answer. Some of you try to do something more and then you mess up. So be aware of that. Number B, there's fractions and there's mixed numbers. So you have to get that all rid of the fractions and the mixed numbers. So first of all, we write the 2.5 as 2,5 and we write the 3/5 as 0.6. How do I get the decimals out? Times 10 to get 1 decimal out. Times 100 to get 2 out. It depends on what you want to do. So you have to times 10, but when you times the one with 10, you have to times the other one with 10. So 2.5 times 10 is 25, and 0.6 times 10 is 6. There's no common factor, so you can just leave that as your final answer. Number C, there's different units. This one is in meter, 2.1 meter and 69 centimeters. First get all to the same unit, same centimeters. Then you leave out the units. Now they're in the same. Now you say, now I can write the ratio, 210 to 69. And I have to simplify, and the only common factor that I see there is 3. So I divide the left by 3 and the right. So we divide by 3. The ratios, be very careful and decide for yourself whether this is direct or indirect. But that's proportion. Let's first look at the ratios. I divide something in a ratio 2 to 3 to 5, or we have discs blue, green and red, and they on the ratio 2 to 3 to 5. So there we have blue, black and yellow. And remember, the order is very important. There's 2 parts black, 2 parts blue. The first is the blue, and that's 2. The second name is black, and that's the 3, and the yellow is the 5. So first, you always have to consider how many parts, how many together. 2 parts, 3 parts, and 5 parts. So there's 10 parts. Now the blue ones are 2 of the 10 parts. 2/10 of the total 60. The black ones are 3 parts. 3 of the 10 parts. 3 out of 10 times the 60. And then you get your answers. Now, when you already get one of the parts, like in number 2, boys and girls in a class are in the ratio 3 to 5. There's 12 boys. How many learners in the class? Can you see the difference between the first question and the second one? First one, you know the total, and you just work out the fraction of the total. Now you get, there are 12 boys, and I look, okay, there's 3 parts and 5 parts. Boys are 3 parts. Girls are 5 parts. The whole class will be 8 parts. So I want to know what the 8 parts is. The 12 boys stand for 3 parts. So I need to go to 1 part. If I divide the 12 by 3, I get 1 part. And then I can multiply with 8 because the whole class represents 8 parts. 12 divided by 3, 4. 4 is 1 part. The whole class, 8 times 4, so that gives you the total. Always look what's given. Is the total given? Must I find the total? Carefully count your parts. Direct and indirect proportion you have to always consider. Is it direct? Is it indirect? If the one quantity gets bigger, the other quantity gets also bigger. That's when we have direct proportion. Indirect proportion is when the one quantity gets bigger, the other one gets smaller. Like, direct proportion, 1 book costs $5. The more books I buy, the more you pay. 2 books cost 2 times 5. 3 books cost 3 times 5. Indirect proportion, 10 men build a wall in 2 days. So if I've got more men, I will take less time. If I have less men, I will take more time. So always speak to yourself and decide, is this direct or indirect proportion? Because the method, how you work them out, are different. Direct proportion, I use 60 grams of sugar, 150 grams of flour for a cake. Always make 2 columns, sugar, flour. 60 sugar, 150 flour. What's the question? For 100 grams of sugar, how much flour? Underneath, in the sugar column, write the 100. In the flour column, there's the question, the x. You can use any number, that's what you want to work out. Then you cross multiply 60 times x, 100 times 150, and make an equation which you just solve the x. And make sure that you cross multiply 60 times x equals 100 times 150. Indirect proportion, you do it exactly the same, you write in the same way. The days and the sheep, 12 bags of food, 12 bags of food is needed, enough food for 32 sheep for 6 days. So days, 6, sheep, 32. How long will the same food last when there are 24 sheep? So in the sheep column I put 24. And how many days? That's my question, x. So multiply horizontally now, not crosswise. You say x times 24 equals 6 times 32. You multiply horizontally for indirect proportion. Please look and go through all the examples in the study unit as well as the activity. Don't miss them out. They are the best examples to study and to prepare yourself for the exam as well as the assignment. So let's get to study unit 2. Money, interest, hire purchase tax, municipality bills. You will definitely be asked a few questions on money, so please don't leave this out. Now, simple interest, you just get that for 5% the rate. 5% of what? Of your 7,000 that you invested. For 1 year, it's just 5% of 7,000. For 2 years, it's times 2. For 3 years, it's times 3. You get the interest for 1 year and times it with a number of years. When it's compound interest, that's another story. You can use the formula, but you have to work out each one step by step, each year on its own, because that rent, let's look at the example there, that rent is now it becomes part of my investment. Now each year, my invested amount becomes bigger. So for the first year, 5% of the 7,000 gives you the 350. That 350 must be added to your 7,000. So now my capital amount, my principal amount is 7,350. I work out again the 5% and get the answer. Then I have to add that again if there's a third year and a fourth year. So be careful with the question. What did the question ask? Did the question ask the interest I earn in the 2 years? Then you have to add the 350 and the 367.50. That's the interest. If the total amount is asked, you have to get the 7,000 plus the 2 years interest. So it's the 7,000 plus that 350 plus the 367 to get your final amount. So make sure that you know what the difference is and read your question, compound or simple interest. And also make sure that you read what is asked. Is it the interest asked or is it the total amount asked? With bills, remember, the current reading is the biggest reading. Minus the previous reading, that gives you the usage. Then the usage, so many units that are used, multiply the cost of 1 unit. That gives you the amount I have to pay. And the total of all the services will be your bill at the end of the month. So please check your activities and check your examples. Work through them. Don't just read through them and look at the book and it looks easy. No, work through them on your own and see if you get to the answers what they give. Then hire purchase, there's a few things there. You have a deposit to pay most of the times. The deposit is sometimes a percentage, 5% of the cash price you have to pay deposit. And then the rest you have to pay in installments. So first calculate the deposit. Then subtract the deposit from the selling price or the price that they give you. Then you have to divide what is left with the number of installments to get the amount of one installment. So you add the deposit and all the installments to get your total hire purchase price. So there's many ways how this question can be asked. Read carefully and see what is given. Is the deposit given as a cash price or a cash number, or is it given as a percentage? So if the deposit is 15%, like in our example, you have to first work out that 15%. Then you get the deposit. You definitely have to subtract that deposit. So now you have the amount left, the 212,500. Then you divide that by the number of installments and read carefully. If they say 1 year, you know it's 12 installments. 2 years, it's 24. Or they give you the number of installments, like 10 installments or 15 installments, and you divide it by that. So also, please do and go through and work through the examples in all cases. Income tax, it's actually very easy. You just have to follow it step by step. You have a lot of amounts. You get a salary each month. Your total salary that you get without the subtractions, before all the deductions or things you subtract, that's your annual salary. So first add, and then you get the tax-free allowances. The tax-free allowances usually for pension or for medical, or they will tell you in any case what it will be. So add all the tax-free allowances. That's everything that must be subtracted. So you subtract all the tax-free allowances. If they give you that for 1 month, you have to multiply by 12 to get it for 12 months, because we always work with a tax for a whole year, your income for a whole year, your deductions for the whole year, your tax-free allowances for the whole year. So if somebody earns 300,000 per year, the tax-free allowances are those. So 5,500 of that is tax-free. So of course, from the 300,000, you subtract that 5,500. Now you're left with 294,500. Then you have to go back to the table. Where does 294,500 fall? And carefully look, it falls definitely in that third row. It's when your income is more than 100,000 up to 300,000. Then you pay 9,000, so check out that third column, 9,000 plus 25% of the rest, which is above 100,000. Where do I get the 100,000? At the beginning of the row. So we just work out that 25%. Where did I get that? In the third row, 25% of what is above 100,000. So I have left 294,000 and 500. What's above 100,000? You subtract that 100,000 and get 194,500. 25% of that, that's your tax part for that amount, plus the 9,000. That gives you your total tax paid. So it's very important that you read carefully what's the tax-free allowances, what's left, and then search for the correct row. If what is left is more than 300,000, I'm definitely going to the fourth row, where I pay 59,000 plus 28% of what's left, or what's left after I subtracted the 300,000. So carefully read that. It's always the same. There's no difference in the working out of this problem. It's actually an easy question that you can get full marks for. Just make yourself and do some exercises, do the problems, and make yourself acquainted with everything that you, all the different examples that you have, so that you definitely, in the assignment as well as in the exam, you will definitely get not only one, but more than one. You will get income tax as well as hire purchase, or you will get interest, you will get compound interest. You can get definitely 2 out of the 4 topics definitely will be asked, but it can be even 3. So don't leave out some of it. And remember, don't use a 1,000 separator. It's in this question where there's big amounts like 294,000 where you put 1,000 separators there because your calculator gives it. Please don't. It is not accepted, and you may not do that. Then you lose all your marks. Even if you worked out everything 100%, I know what you mean, but I can't give you those marks. So thank you. This was the end of this presentation. Go to part 2. That will be the next 2 chapters, the next 2 units in your study guide. Thank you.